With a solid foundation laid down by a few pioneers, and an emerging new custom culture being taken up by a new generation, there's bound to be artists that rise above and lay down some influence of their own.
Steve Moore, from the beginning, was an illustrator. He could draw better than most people, still to this day.
Seeing his stuff just change. It was always illustrative. His painting, his tattooing and stuff, always from back then was always illustrative.
And had a perspective on composition and trying to make things dynamic, but at the same time very noble, very proper. Steve really showed me the full extent of what tattooing can be. Today we have a lot of guys that are up to par and like absolute slayers in tattooing, but not at the time.
Truly, Steve's work's unbelievable on the world stage of tattooing. That's the scale and scope and compositions of his work is like, there's no one like that.
His work has like an emotion in it, where there's an expression in the faces that he does and the gestures that he does that makes you feel something. So you're not just looking at a well-articulated picture. It like has some kind of spirit or emotion in it, and I'd never seen that before in a tattoo. It's like a different level of art altogether, where he's translating some kind of ethereal meaning into a picture, which is awesome.
You see his influence everywhere in tattooing, like if you're paying attention to it.
The guru of the West Canadian school, for me, to my opinion, is Steve Moore. He, I'm not gonna pretend to know what goes on in his head, but he was obviously influenced by a new school culture, and then the way I describe it is new school culture matches realistic lights, you know?
Everybody was doing new school. Steve Moore was doing illustrative. That's the difference, right? Craig Driscoll, new school. Steve Moore, illustrative. He wasn't just doing bold line weight. Yeah, he was doing multiple line weights in tattoos to gain, perspective and stuff like that. He wasn't just blocking in stuff and then throwing in color on top, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, he was doing like such extreme poses and perspectives that honestly, really, when you think about it, he created all that stuff. Anybody that's doing illustrative tattooing now, it's got to be traced back to Steve, no matter what.
So like I look to maybe guys like Marcus Pacheco and Philip Blue a little bit more. And I think I don't know, and maybe comic books, like to sort of change the perspective. I think it was enough to do a figure flat, and it wasn't really like a challenge, and it was more of a challenge to like tip it on its side or turn it over or have some type of like, that the viewer interacts with the subject matter rather than just like an observer, it's like, it's more like dynamic.
Well, figurative would be a big part of it, Not too many people can draw figurative stuff out of their head or even with reference that well. At least back in the day. Actually, they still can't. Movement and flow and stuff like that, no one was doing that shit. It was all traced out, stiff. If it wasn't traced out, it's real stiff, cardboardy. It's cardboard cutouts, But he brought dimension into it and huge color palettes, big fields, and original ideas.
Thick lines, but building them, not just big marker, this is thinner than this one and this one is thicker, and there's a reason for that, and you just the weight of what you're trying to do, the dynamics, and then you have these crazy colors that aren't just there to be bright, they're there to show light, they're there to show mass. The shit's 3D, the whole thing is 3D, and you can feel it, it's just beautiful.
If you're just observing it, I don't know how you can't see somebody that has just achieved a certain level of understanding and a certain level of mastery of an art form.
Just the idea and attention to detail, but making the design still super engaging and like captivating. It just moves your eyes completely. The use of line work and then bold, bright color and like really specific negative space. he just really nailed it on the illustrative front, like taking it to a totally new realm.
I would say it's beyond just the simple stuff of contrast and stuff. I just saw a guy who was leaving no stone unturned in his designs. So he's pulling in different influences like Renaissance stuff and Art Nouveau, Art Deco.
Back then, I think Steve was way ahead of the curve. I think he still is. You know, he's still doing things that to most people wouldn't make sense. How to conceptualize fitting certain things to people's bodies in that way is a different way than most people think.
Steve Moore's work was like huge in like reinventing what tattoos could be for me, and especially what they can do when you really like let go of conventional tattooing rules necessarily, like how you would never see teal blended into peach and it's a skin tone and it still looks like a skin tone, and it's just like this wild.
I would list Steve Moore as one of the top artists in the world. I think he influences anybody he meets.
Hard work and dedication are hallmarks of the greatest artists, and like most things, they attract the like-minded. Determination to succeed, a drive to progress, and a willingness to share elevates the hungry artist. Out of this environment, only the most inspiring work is produced.
I don't even know what to say about James Tax. Like, he's so fucking good. It's like, oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, he's real good.
James had a moment in time where he just, something tilted in and he became an animal.
There's a guy that wants to go up, 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 up and be the best guy in the world, and and is willing to do whatever amount of drawing and tattooing to get that reputation. And I appreciate that in people.
What he can do in a short amount of time, and the way he can, pull imagery out of his head, it's unbelievable.
I used to walk in his shop every time I was into Calgary to just go sit down and look at sketchbooks, and it would depress me for a couple of weeks, and it would get me going, because the guy's a maniac.
People were hungry for something bold and colorful and like cartoony, and like people love that stuff, and it was like hit. Like his timing was impeccable. Yeah. And as soon as that went out there, it was like wildfire. Yeah. The rest of the people that were standing around him, they either followed with him. That's part of his school. You can see a lot of that, James Tech school too. And it was like either follow me or get left in the dust kind of thing. He's
just so, like, I see him like Dave C. or like, in that line, even like Scott McEwen, he's an iconic Canadian tattooer, I think, because, on a world scale, like, you don't even have to limit it to Canada. Like, he's doing something and it's his own, and he's doing it so well, and it's such a pace that it's like, you can't really catch up to him.
He had just started at Smiling Buddha and was doing this crazy comic booky, really crazy stuff, and just, man, I've never seen brighter tattoos,
James worked really hard. Like, go to his house and look at literal stacks and stacks, thousands of pages of sketching, he was determined, and if he wants to do something, he's gonna do it, you know what I mean?
He draws with such ease, and he makes it look effortless. It pisses me off, It shouldn't be that easy. It's not easy for me anyway.
Somebody might do a sleeve and it might take them a year in multiple sittings or something. Like, James will have it done, in a month or two. And so his rate of growth is really exponential. It's very dynamic. And I think because it comes from his brain, it's not limited by, finding reference or creating reference, or there's no limitations, so he's just like, it comes out of his head, and everything that comes out of his head is just super. I remember talking to him in Paris, and he said that, I guess I'd talked to him at one point about, like having a drawing and then, just turning it like that and then doing it that way rather than, but it's like his is, it's past that, right? Like, it's like he's really, you can see him really exploring and pushing the boundaries as far as he can. And, the more you do that, the more you get people open to it and just, letting you do it. Like, I see him as also probably one of the first people that is just like presenting work. Like I think I saw him do it before I saw anyone else do it. Like, here's a drawing, do you want to get it tattooed? And it's like a bunch of people are like, yes, because it's like, I totally want that. He doesn't even have to wait for somebody to ask for the idea. He skipped that whole step. He just shot to the end where it's like, what am I capable of? Like, what, how far can I go? Here's what I can do. And it's like, there's somebody that wants it.
For me, the love of tattooing is actually drawing. That's the fun part, So if you can keep that fun and not stressful, I think it'll be a better career. It might be a lot of hit and misses because customer wants this, but you're going to be a stubborn artist for a day and try to draw what your version of what they want, and they'll come in and not like it. It could be hard going, but
happens.
It does happen, yeah, that's all right. Or you could give them exactly what they want. Or you could just hopefully blow it out of the ballpark and then change it a bit your way, Baby steps, People have to earn your respect and trust.
Moving forward into early 2000, we saw a huge boom in tattooing. A craft that was once practiced by the grizzled ex-carnies, sailors, and outcasts is now the domain of young, vibrant artists of diverse backgrounds. No longer the heavily tattooed feared or rejected. The rough subculture that birthed custom tattooing was no longer the dominant set. The word was out. No one was about to look back. The popularity and acceptance spread into every small town, carried by tattoo TV shows, rock star promises, and an ever-increasing artist base. But we must remember the free-living original thinkers that set a standard and raised the bar. We must thank those early trailblazers, the artistic-minded and progressive thinkers, for establishing a blueprint that enriches the lives of so many. They carry us all on their shoulders.
disguise. We were made to chase the light, but you got saved on a moonless night. Get free tonight, set it all on fire. And fever dreams, talking in your sleep.